Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us today. This is our monthly board update on the status of the facilities improvement planning process. This facilities improving planning process is the sole purpose of this special board meeting, and no other business will be conducted today. Okay, next slide, Ben. Before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone how to ask a question using this GoToWebinar application. You start with the control panel, as you can see. If you can't see the control panel, you can probably see a red rectangle with a white arrow, a horizontal arrow in it. You click on that, it expands and collapses the control panel. So expand the control panel. Further down with the arrow points where it says type question here, you should type your question there. And then where it's circled that says send, you click on send. That's all there is to asking a question. You can ask your question anytime. We'll work through them as we progress through the presentation. Let's start with a quick review of the ad hoc committee's purpose. The committee's purpose is to, first and foremost, oversee and provide member input to the planning and design of our projects. When I say the planning input to design and projects, I'm talking about interaction with our owner's rep, our architects, and any contractors that we have. The other important role is to serve as a means of communicating with members and lead to a member vote. We work that in conjunction with the Communications and IT Committee. The ad hoc committee consists of 2 subcommittees and 17 members. If you go to the next chart, Ben. This is who, just as a reminder, this is who's on the ad hoc committee and the 2 subcommittees. Dave Harper and I chair the ad hoc committee. Tom Pinkerton chairs the golf course renovation subcommittee, and Gail Fisher chairs the club facilities improvement subcommittee. A total of 17 members representing all of our 17 members represent all of our members and serve as your connection to the work of the committee. Okay, next chart, please. This is our top level milestone chart. As a reminder, let's look at this for a minute. There are 3 phases that we're working in. First is a conceptual design phase. The second is the detailed design, permitting, and bidding phase. And the third is the construction phase. The conceptual design phase, we've got scheduled for 12 months. The detailed design, permitting, and bidding phase is scheduled for 15 months. And the construction phase is scheduled for 8 months. And if everything works right, which I hope it will, the work will be complete in November of 2023. Next chart, please. This is where we're working right now, where the current team focus is in the conceptual design phase and preparing for the member vote in October through December of this year. Let's take another look at a more detailed milestone schedule for this conceptual design phase. We've got 2 columns here. On the left is the golf course renovation project, and on the right is the club facilities improvement project. Talk first about the golf course renovation project. They already obviously have a first cut at a design, and they're in the process now of analyzing member comments, and have got quite a few comments, well over 100 commenters, and Tom's going to talk about that a little bit later in the presentation. But that's what they're doing now, analyzing comments. And if you have a comment, you should provide it to Tom. If you don't, then you're just complaining if you haven't provided it to Tom or Gail. If you want to see something done about it, you got to mention it to them. In March and April, they'll review the comments again with the architect. The architect will give a design update and provide us with a more accurate cost estimate. Now, switching over to the club facility side, they don't have a design yet, but they're going through the conceptual design development process. Once they have something that is in line with what they think members are looking for, they'll have a member review comment on the design in probably the March-April timeframe. And in April, they'll get cost estimates developed by our owner's rep, Jeff Nunner, and Dave Porman, our architect, and other contractors will contribute to putting that estimate together. So you can see from the chart by April, end of April, we'll have a more detailed estimate from the golf course architect and an estimate from the club facilities architect and the owner's rep. That's when the board will have to, was indicated by an arrow there, the board will have to settle how the budget's going to be divided up based on the estimates that have been prepared. And that's where the tough decisions will come in about how much money we're going to spend on each project and overall. We don't have the data to make that decision right now, but we should by May. After May, we work both projects work through continued member review, architect design iterations, preparing for the vote package for both parts, and then the member vote from October in the October through December timeframe. This schedule will get progressively more detailed as additional steps come into focus. Next chart, please. So one of the important assumptions that's built into this milestone schedule we just talked about is that the golf renovation project and the facility projects, and by facility projects I mean the bistro and the fitness center, for example, will be done at the same time. That's one of the basic assumptions, is they're going to be voted on at the same time and pursued at the same time. Now, the board doesn't have to make a decision right now if that's exactly how we want to operate it, but it is time to discuss why we have this assumption in the first place. And so the purpose of this chart is just to facilitate a discussion among the board members about the impact of having the projects done together, or the impact of separating the projects. And I'll go through a few points, a few discussion points, and then we'll talk about it. If we close the golf course but leave the bistro open, in other words, do those projects separately, that really has a big impact on the bistro, because as you can imagine, the daytime meals are largely driven by golf. Not entirely, but largely driven by golf. So if you close the golf course and leave the bistro open, you've got an impact there. If you reverse that, excuse me, and you close the bistro but leave the golf course open, then you're inconveniencing the golfers in that they don't have any place to gather and to eat. So that has an impact on the two of them. Staggering the construction over 2 years would disrupt these member amenities twice. Once the year the golf course is closed, and another next year or in subsequent year when the bistro is closed. So that's the impact of one of the impacts of doing them separately. So for example, if in 2023 the golf course was closed and 2024 the bistro is closed, that'll inconvenience in both years and stretch out the project. Now, there's also the question of whether we could do them in 2 consecutive years. Doing them separately doesn't necessarily mean we could pull off doing it in 2 consecutive years. For example, both projects require construction financing. So if we did the golf course in 2023 and we got a construction loan, and then we decided we were going to do the bistro in 2024, there's complexities associated with getting a construction loan in 2024 when you've already got one in 2023. Do you combine the 2 loans? You refinance them? Do you have 2 loans? Are you at a disadvantage getting a rate the second time? Rates are low now, and we hope they'll be in 2023, but by stretching it out another year or more, you take the risk of the rates changing again. The timing could also be impacted if we stagger the projects by the county. The county has a policy of not having 2 open permits on the same property at the same time. Now, there's ways around that where you put in one project and then you amend that permit to add the second project. There's problems associated with that. It can be done, but there's problems associated with that. But if we ran into issues with that, that means that if we did the golf course first, we couldn't put in the permit for the bistro until the golf course permit was closed, and then we'd have to start the process over again with the bistro. So there's complexities with there. And another impact of staggering the 2 projects is any economies that we might get by having both projects working at the same time. We lose those. Another factor to consider is that we have a very small footprint. You're all familiar with the size of the footprint between the wall of the club and the tennis courts. That is not a very big footprint, and in our opinion, it requires a coordination of the improvements. For example, if we expand the bistro to include the amount of seating that we've talked about, that will impinge on the pool, which means we may have to change the pool because of the bistro. If we decide to revise the fitness center would we be in the place of the existing fitness center or somewhere else in that confined space? So all of these, trying to put all of this in a relatively confined space drives the idea that we should coordinate the improvements and do them at one time rather than do them over a series of years. And most important, the members survey said the members want to see the improvements made in the near term. I can't tell you the number of members who said to me, I want to get the golf course done. I don't know how many more years I'll be playing golf, and I don't want to hear about anything that's going to be done in 4 or 5 more years. And that, I think that's a sentiment that many of you have heard. So in summary, those are some of the rationale that we're using to pursue this projects together. But I wanted to have this discussion. Again, we don't have to decide this right now, but we will eventually have to decide, the board will have to decide whether we're going to do the 2 projects together, we're going to, or separate them. So does anyone have any of the board members have any thoughts on this?
Larry, this is Tom. Have we identified any downsides of doing the 2 projects simultaneously?
We didn't. I mean, the obvious impact of doing them together is the cost of doing them together.
Right.
And we've up till now we've decided to manage that by saying we know what the members said they were willing to pay from the survey, and the thought was as long as we could keep at or under that number plus reserves, that we would be in a place that the members have already said they would be willing to fund. If it goes over that, that's obviously a problem. And if we had a significantly over it and we couldn't skinny it down, we might have to go to two different years.
And when I think about the great list of advantages to doing it at one time, and the biggest one to me being one closure for the club during one period of time, impacting our members' ability to use the club just during that once. I mean, that really overrides just about anything that I could think of. And I certainly can't think of any disadvantages to doing it at one time. And hopefully the package that will be presented to the members will be such that it's obvious that they would vote affirmatively on both the golf course and the facilities. And by doing it at one time, I just think it's a win for everybody in this community.
Yeah. One of the related questions, and you hit on it a little bit, Tom, but there's also some members have asked, are we going to have a single vote or yay or nay for both projects, or we're going to vote separately on the 2 projects? And that's still a question that will need to be answered by the next board. I think one of the issues is if you vote on them separately and one doesn't pass, then you may effectively be sliding that out a couple of years.
Exactly.
So it behooves us to get 2 projects that are well accepted by the members when we come to vote, so that doesn't happen.
Larry?
Yeah, Jim, go ahead.
Just a clarification question, please. Are we at a point now where we know what would be closed in the clubhouse, or is that still up in the air? In other words, the whole building would be closed, or just the bistro and potentially the pool would be closed?
Tim, you want to take that?
Sure. Yeah. Well, obviously it depends on the scope of work, so we don't have the full answer to that yet. But it's very likely that the upstairs dining area would remain open throughout the project. If all the work is taking place in the bistro, there's a possibility there could be some work done in the bistro. In the grill room, so that may have a partial closure at some point. But that's still, we don't know the scope yet. Right now, is to know if the grill room is going to be that affected. But the intent would be to have the whole upstairs open throughout the project.
And would there be an idea of if the bistro project is done before the golf course is finished, would you then still open up the bistro and deal with the fact that the golf course is not being used?
It would all depend on the logistics at that time. I mean, at that point would be just on the grow-in of the golf course, so there shouldn't be a disruption as far as construction activity or anything. So most likely the bistro could open before the golf course if it is ready.
Thank you.
Anyone got any other thoughts about pros or cons to the question, separating or doing the projects in parallel?
I have a,
Sandy,
Yeah.
excuse me. Sandy, go ahead.
Oh, I think doing construction at the same time is a win-win, because then homeowners won't be displaced 2 years in a row or however many years in a row. Also, they're working on the golf course and then they're moving dirt in the golf course and the bistro. It's going to be a mess anyway. So they're not going to want to be sitting in the bistro if they're got dust coming through. I'm not sold on it being one vote, because someone just said, well, what if we have 2 votes and the bistro doesn't make it, but the golf course does? Well, what if the same scenario happens if we're in one vote and people don't like the bistro, but they like the golf course? I mean, then it's a no vote and we're stuck with nothing.
Right, that's a risk associated with that. You're right. Dave, I think you had a comment. Dave,
Charlie.
did you
No, I did. Charlie did.
oh, Charlie, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Charlie.
yeah, just following up on what Sandy said, my concern with doing this as a single vote is exactly what she said, that there's a potential downside there if one or the other pieces isn't popular with the members, that the whole thing goes down versus separating and having 2 separate votes. There's obviously advantages to doing it as one vote, but there's also that disadvantage, and I think that needs to be considered carefully.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks, Charlie. Betsy, you have any thoughts on this, or?
Well, we could
I
still-
actually think that because we've already got a lot of momentum going with the golf course, it would be really helpful, I think, if we could, if Tom thinks this could work, get things all pretty well lined up with the comments and the ideas and Kip Schulte's, and then bring it back and show it to people and say, there's going to be a golf course renovation anyway. We know that, but this is what we can afford, and this is what we're thinking to put in and make it more playable and really help the stress areas. And this is what we're presenting to you, and give it to the members sooner rather than later, so you see what they think, because it might just take some of the pressure off the end, the whole like doing this vote at the very end, when maybe we could have one piece of it already established and settled.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Betsy, part of that, I mean, we are going to work on the golf course, okay, at some point. I think at the Meet the Candidates meeting, one of the Meet the Candidates talked about spending over $3.5 million to do the refurbishment, not renovation, but refurbishment of the greens, fairways, tees, bulkheads, sand
Right.
traps, the whole thing. That is not up for member vote. That's just replacing the assets that have aged out. So that's like $3.5 million. The additional work that could be done at the golf course will be over and above that. But we need to recognize that, and the date that gets done is an important cog in this wheel.
Yeah. Tom, let me just clarify your comment about this not up for member vote. What I think you're saying is the work that was already scheduled to be done in 2023 through reserves, if that's what we did, that sort of thing gets voted on when the members vote to accept the budget.
Exactly.
Over and above work, which is plenty, that's what has to be going on, because that would require us to get financing and assess the members and that sort of thing. But the work that's would be done by the reserves alone is already sort of baked into the budget.
Yes,
Right.
that's right.
Yeah, I didn't want any misunderstanding about that.
Absolutely.
Kathy, you have a comment? You're on mute. You're on mute, Kath.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I think going back to the initial issue that we were discussing, which was doing the projects together at the same time. I think our experience with Irma was that the prolonged construction and having the Stonebridge under construction for a couple of years at a time, people were so tired of having this construction, you know, a few years in a row. And I do think that there is an advantage, and you certainly bring out some good points with the county permits and with the economy of scale with the bank loans of doing the projects at the same time. I have to say initially I was concerned about it, but the more I think about it and the more we discuss it, I think it does make sense to do it and then get all of this construction over with. So that's my thoughts on it.
Right. Well, you know, I think a good side benefit is if you're planning on taking a round the world cruise, the summer of 2023 would be the time to take it. Right.
Right.
Things are going to be disrupted. So, Charlie, you had another comment?
Just a question on Tom's, what Tom said about the part of the golf course project that is already reserved for. When we put this proposal out for vote, will that part of it be included in the proposal and in the pricing or not? I'm not sure what that meant.
I think yes.
Yes, there will be.
So the stuff we're reserving for will actually be in that proposal as well, even though people don't get to vote on that.
Yes,
Well-
that will be part of the funding of the entire project.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Part of the
So we're not doing 100% debt on the combined projects.
Right, that's why I'm asking.
And the reserves that we have set aside would be used to keep the amount of debt down.
Right.
So the members would vote on the whole project, some of which is going to be funded with reserves and some of which is going to be funded with finance.
Correct.
Yeah. But we won't,
Larry-
the proposal wouldn't separate that. Gail, go ahead.
One other thing to think about is that the longer we wait, if we were to stagger the projects, the more they're going to cost because things don't go down over time, they just go up over time. So the renovations that are done later would become more expensive than they might be in 2023.
Dave, what did you find was the inflation indices for construction?
Yeah, as we looked at the cost, the cost per member per month, what's happening with construction, according to Turner Construction, which is probably the biggest construction company in the country, they provide an index of what the construction costs are. And for the last 8 years, it's been running 4.5%. So the more we push it out, that is going to, whether that 4.5% sticks or not, that's what it's been averaging over the last 8 years.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, and I think another point is this question about the size of the footprint. You know, it's basically a postage stamp we've got over there between the building and the tennis courts, and the idea of doing projects there sort of bit at a time seems inefficient and likely to result in a suboptimum result. You know, and it'd be better to say, here's the lot we've got. Here's where the bistro is going to go. Here's what the fitness center is going to do. Here's what it means to the pool, all of that. So you have a finished product that we can all agree on rather than do it pieces at a time. It seems like that drives coordination, which drives doing it at the same time.
It doesn't sound to me like there are any board members who are against doing the projects at the same time. I mean, I haven't heard anybody speaking against that. So we all are in unison on that, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I don't hear any major objections. So
Yeah.
part of but I think this is a big issue. I mean, it's not a minor decision; it's a major decision, and we feel like at this point this is where we want to go, and the projects together And I think this is a good time to talk about it, so we're all sort of thinking about what the factors are, so we can discuss it with our members if they have concerns about that, and not wait until the last minute to discuss this. So good. All right. Well, thank you very much for the discussion, and I'm sure we'll continue discussing this. But this was good discussion to tee it up. Okay, Ben, next chart. Okay, now I'm going to turn it over to for the golf course renovation. We'll turn it over to Pinkerton. Tom.
Okay. Now I'm just going to update everybody on what has happened, I guess, since our last special board meeting. And I guess the main thing that we've been focusing on in our subcommittee is the gathering and analysis of member input. On January 12th, we sent out a request to the membership showing side-by-side hole comparisons with an opportunity for them to give us their thoughts on each and every hole. Let's see, February 1st, we sent out a second request for members to be reminded that this is a great opportunity, or is the best opportunity for them to give us complete their thoughts. So far, and this really goes back all the way to when we had a presentation at a town hall back in 2019, we've got about 173 responses, which is 20% of the membership. So those 173 responses really range everywhere from I love everything, do it now, to I hate everything, don't ever do this, okay? And everywhere in between. So our group has taken all 18 holes and divvied that. We have 6 members of our committee. Each of our 6 members have taken 3 holes kind of to do a deep dive on in terms of what the membership responses are on those holes and how we can reshape that to really be a good representation of what's best for the membership. So if you think about, we got 20% responses, that means we have 80% of our households have not responded at all as it pertains to golf course changes. I guess you have to think about what does that mean? What did those 80% mean when they don't respond? So we will be kind of doing our analysis based on the 173 responses that we have. On February 23rd, we will meet again, and we will kind of go through those responses that have been received through February 14th, those ones that we picked up since our last meeting. We will kind of come up with a final plan of what we think each of those holes looks like based on the input from the membership. And at that point, we will then go through that with Mark Metzger, Director of Grounds, and get his specific input on that. A couple of themes that we've learned in these hole reviews. Number one is, generally speaking, there's not a lot of appetite for moving of water here at Stonebridge. People are afraid that that's expensive and could have a negative impact to people's homes and the views from their homes, and we are very sensitive to that issue. And just kind of as a matter of fact, for you to know, moving water in Florida is not a very big, expensive proposition. You take a backhoe and you dig a hole, and the Florida water table pretty much takes care of everything. Rain. It's not nearly as complicated as one might think, but there is expense involved. And in the original plan, the initial master plan that we saw, the cost of doing the water movement in that plan was about 3 to 4% of the budget. Okay, so just so everybody knows, it's not as dramatic cost-wise as one would, normally assume. So anyhow, that's our plan. We're going to get Metzger to take a look at it after we've come up with what we think the membership input is. Once we've got something with Metzger, we will then get to Mr. Schulteis and say, hey, you gave us an initial master plan based on the focus groups. Now here we're asking for a revised initial master plan based on this input that we have gathered through February 14th. Some other learnings we should share and maybe talk a little bit about the fairways. If there's one critique that we routinely get from our membership is that our fairways are not up to their standard. Why is that? Lots of different reasons. When we do our renovation, whether it is through the vote, etc., or just through a refurbishment of the golf course, the process that will be gone through is that heavy equipment will come out onto that golf course and they will scrape off the first 6 to 10 inches of ground off the tees, off the rough, and off the fairways. That 6 to 10 inches of whatever that is will get thrown away, okay? It will not be reused. We will dig up what's under there and we will bring in replacement 6 to 10 inches of sand with a combination of some thatch in there. And that will be spread all over the tees, fairways, and rough, okay? It will be all brand new, okay? This was, this is how it will be redone here in 2013 if we get a positive vote. And that will then, little grass plants called sprigs will be placed all over that surface. It will be watered and fertilized, and that will be our surface. And the reason that's so important is in Florida, we get a lot of rain, we need drainage. The sand is really the best surface for that. Most of us who have spent our life up in the Northeast or Chicago or Michigan area, it's a totally different event up there. No one would ever say, let's kill all the grass on the golf course, scrape off the first 10 inches and start all over again. That just would never happen, and it should never happen. But this is Florida. It's very different. We have year-round usage. We have grass that has a lifespan of some amount of years, and it is a common process that gets done in Florida when you redo a golf course. The last time that we did this was back in 2010. And at that time, we did not take off the first 6 to 10 inches of surface. We did kill the grass. We did, actually there were discs. People who are farmers know about discs. Discs were brought in and that cut up the grass and everything that was there. And then we put sprigs into that. So the surface that we're playing golf on right now could be as old as 1995, whenever the golf course was built. What they did in 2010 was exactly what they should have done at that time. They had the budget to do that. The total dollars spent in 2010 was $2.3 million. We're talking closer to $5 million, okay? So we will be trying to do it the best way based on today's technology and what will provide us the best result. So that's everything I know about fairways. Let's see what else we want to tell you about. The movement of water. Why do you move water? There's several good reasons to do it. Number one, you want to increase the usability of land. For those of you who are golfers, think about hole number 7, okay? If you're up by the water on number 7, every golfer and every cart that plays that hole drives through probably that 20-yard wide piece of property. By moving some water, you can enlarge that. You can enlarge the landing area. You can enlarge the cart traffic. Improve playability. Again, think of the exits on holes 3 and 4. Some more room for cart traffic to come out. By making some more land out there, You get some players who will play from different tees. Right now, 90% of our golf goes off the 3 tees, the black balls, the 4s, and the 5s, okay? 90% of that golf. Those golfers all hit the ball into pretty much the same place, okay? That's why there are certain places on our golf course that you can go out there and you can just find lots of divots that have been sand filled. We're very religious and good about filling in the sand divots. So by moving some water and expanding the tees that people might play from, that also has a value in doing that. So, you know, those are just a couple reasons as to why you would do it. And we are obviously going to be very sensitive to neighbors and their homes, but we may find some places that it would be useful and beneficial to everybody to move it. Another thought that just, I've heard some rumors about building a stone bridge, okay? A stone bridge would probably cost us around $250,000. That's the ballpark for building a nice stone bridge. You can probably build one for $150,000 and you can probably build one for $550,000. But ballpark for us is around $250,000 to build a nice stone bridge. And that may not even fit into the plan based on the changes that will have to be made to accommodate member concerns. Our next steps, as I said, was to get Mark Metzger involved and happy with the renovation. We will then get with Mr. Schulteis and ask him to redo it and give us, you know, cost numbers with that. The original cost numbers that we got for the first initial master plan was 5.5 million. So we will see whether this is any different. I wouldn't expect a huge price decrease, but we shall see. And then the last thing I want to tell you about is we had a guy from the United States Golf Association agronomy department here today. He is a PhD in agronomy, impressive guy. He was here for about 4.5 hours. Joe Morrissey and I were out on the golf course with him for about 3 hours, along with Mr. Jones and Mark Metzger, the pro, Eric, and just an impressive guy. He was impressed with our golf course, impressed with our property. He dug many shovelfuls of dirt to analyze what the content is made up of. He says we're in good health right now. We can last, you know, another 2 years. We can easily make it to the 2023 date. And he will be issuing a report within the next 2 weeks about his review of our golf course and his recommendations. But I'd just say overall, he was pretty complimentary. And it was kind of counterintuitive, but, you know, he commented about our fairways as probably being in the top 10% of fairways he has seen this year. Many, many golf courses have been overrun by play, overrun by single carts. It was a tough weather period in December and January. We're now getting some rain, some warmer weather, and sunshine. Those things all make the grass grow, which is dormant this time of year. Most of us are from up north, where in the summertime the grass is growing. In Florida, the grass doesn't grow in December, January, February. So I think that's Larry. That's all I have right off the top.
Okay, Kip, one question, Tom. When you get the redesign from Kip, have you considered bringing Kip back for another presentation to the members on what his subsequent thoughts are?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a perfect town hall, you know, conversation. I mean, maybe it'll be on Zoom or you know, webinar, whatever. But when we get back his next revision, he probably is the right guy to make the pitch to the membership.
Right. Any board members have any questions for Tom about that? Betsy?
Tom, that was really a fabulous presentation. Thank you. You gave us so much good information. I have a question about the rock walls. Is replacing the bulkhead in the reserve schedule, or is that something that would be above and beyond? Because I remember hearing that it's not that much more expensive. I think maybe 10 or 15% more to replace the bulkheads with rock walls as opposed to doing wood again. And we have so many bulkheads that need to be replaced. I was wondering where that falls into the reserve schedule.
I mean, we do reserve for the wooden bulkheads, okay? We do reserve for those. It's our understanding right now that the cost of what they call stacked rock is around 15 to 20% more than the bulkheads. You know, we have some stacked rock on the golf course right now. If you think about the 15th tee, back by the 1 and 2 tees, as you're driving towards the restroom, that whole wall there is stacked rock. And, you know, it's nice, it's appealing, it gets moldy. I guess it has a lifetime, you know, warranty. But it's also a decision about aesthetics. Do we like rock or do we like bulkheads? You know, there are people who like both. And, you know, if it's a 20% cost increase to use the rock, maybe it turns out we need to use the bulkheads. But if you use bulkheads, then you have to reserve for them for the next 20 years or however long you do that for. And so it is not a closed decision. It's an open decision, and it will be decided, you know, by people like us.
Question? I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Charlie.
Charlie? Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, Tom, so with the stacked rock versus the bulkheads, I'm not sure if I understand completely here. The life expectancy of stacked rock is what? Is that like a permanent?
Yeah, I think it is, Charlie. I just think it goes on. I don't think you have to reserve for that stacked rock. I mean, you might have to come in and, you know, re-paint or re-cement some places now and then, but it is not something that in 10 years or 15 years you take out and replace, which you do with wooden bulkheads.
So putting aesthetics aside, whether we like them or not, maybe it would make sense to look at the long term here and say if it's 10 or 15% more over the long term, we may be saving a lot of money by doing the stacked rock. Am I right?
It's possible, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Kip told us at one meeting, if I recall, Tom, that when he puts it out for bid with the construction companies, he's going to ask them for alternate bids. What's it going to cost for the wood bulkheads versus the stacked rock? And then we'll have the information to make the decision. Some of the information that will help make the decision, because it's more than a cost factor, but we'll have a cost number.
And then we can use that information to look at what do we have to reserve for bulkhead replacement, right, and how would this over the long term benefit us versus having to reserve that money.
Right. Right. Any other board questions for Tom? Betsy, you have another question?
Okay, well, it's not really a question, but it makes a lot of sense to me to do another town hall with Kip Schultes once you get all your information together. And when he's doing a town hall, he can explain things like why you're going to pay a little extra money, whatever the 20%, 15, 20% is for the rock wall as opposed to the bulkheads, why you're moving the water, for instance, on 7. So, you know, if you have him explaining it to the people who have made these comments, I think it would be very effective. And maybe we can actually kind of get to a consensus on what we're going to do for the golf course sooner than next October, November, whenever the vote would be. And that's why I thought it might be helpful to have him and then have get a member consensus on what's going to be done for that. So it's separate from the facilities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Dave, it would be helpful once they have a bid to look at the payback period, because it seems like a 10 or 15% premium would pay back in a pretty short period of time. And that may help people understand, that we're not going to have to pay ad infinitum for wooden bulkheads.
Right. No,
I think
it could be included in part of the financial analysis to be put out there for the members to understand there is a long-term impact of this.
Yeah.
But
Sandy?
I just wanted to thank you for that information. That was very helpful for me.
Yeah, me too.
Thanks,
Sandy,
Dave.
I wanted to say the same thing. It was excellent. And also to say on the club calendar, we do have a town meeting already planned for April 19th, which sounds like it might be an appropriate time.
There's one other thing I should tell you guys, as you talk to people, the agronomist who was here today, people are always asking about what kind of grass are we going to use? How, will it be whatever? He loves the celebration grass that is on our tees, fairways, collars, and rough. And he loves the Tiff Eagle that is on our putting surfaces. Our putting surfaces are excellent, and it is a proven product. So if he was doing this today, and this is the kind of guy, he's an agronomist who would make a recommendation to us, he would recommend that we use the celebration grass that's out there right now on the fairways and everywhere else, and the Tiff Eagle that's on the greens right now.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. The thing I like about bringing Kip back in April is that we will be much smarter consumers of his ideas than we were the first time. The first time when he did it in April, we were all drooling over all the changes, didn't know what questions to ask. I think this time, after everybody studying the plans and having all these discussions, I think we'll be much more knowledgeable consumers of what he brings to us, and we'll have better questions.
Okay.
Jim?
Larry and the guys, Tom, first of all, that was very information. It was very good information and a lot of ahas by the whole group here. One of the things I'd like to suggest is that once you're finished with the February 23rd analysis of all the comments, you're going to come across themes that people had concerns about. And I do think that even before the town hall is done, get with the communications committee to try to get the information out that bursts the bubble of some of the things, like it costs $1 million to move water, like the grass is terrible, we ought to dig it up and do something different, and whatever else we find, because I think we need this information has to continue to pour out to the members, because you and I both know we've heard a lot of rumors already that are totally off the wall, and we can't let those rumors grow.
Good.
Yeah, Sandy has got to have a robust, frequently asked questions program going on. And, we just need to take advantage of that.
Right. Sandy's going to talk a little bit about that when we get to her presentation. Ben, do we have any member questions on golf?
Yeah, we actually do have about 4 or 5 questions here relevant to golf and what you covered earlier. If you want to get into that now.
Let's do the golf ones while we got Tom on the hot seat.
Okay, well, the first golf one was actually submitted prior to the meeting from Kevin O'Flaherty, and he was looking for some data on how many memberships actually play golf, the frequency of which, and also the number of 18-hole rounds and 9-hole rounds, and then the number of rounds played from each tee relevant to those rounds.
Tim or Tom?
Yeah, I can touch on that. So for the number of memberships that play golf, it's right around 80%. Figuring we have roughly 1,500 doors, so that represents about, not doors, 1,500 members amongst the 799 doors. So that's roughly 1,200 golfers. As far as the split between 18 and 9, 72% of the rounds are 18 hole, 28%, the balance of that are 9 hole rounds. And then another point, which actually Mr. Pinkerton touched on earlier, is that just over 90% of the rounds are played between the 3 and 4 tee. Based on what we know through GIN, there is 6.7% off the number 2 tee, 35% on number 3, a little over 31% on the black ball, and about 26% on the 4s. So that's the information that I was able to get just here recently.
Okay.
And that would be confirmed when we did the facility planning study. 83% of the members that filled that out said that they played golf.
And that was statistically pretty accurate given the number of responses we got.
Right, to within plus 2.3 percentage points. So that would line up right with the 80% number.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Let me ask a question because I've gotten this a lot. Nobody is signed up for the 1 tees and 6.7 for the 2 tees. And my understanding on a few of the holes, for instance, 2, you want to move them around for the 1 and 2 tees. Is that cost effective? And I know there's a couple, I think 15 also you want to do the same thing for. I mean, I'm sure there's been comments on that, and I hope you're looking at that
Sure.
long.
Sure. Yeah, we have a set of 1 tees, and Sandy, nobody plays them.
I know.
So why do we have them? It's nice to be on our scorecard so that when new people come to look at Stonebridge, they don't look at it and say, gee, the golf course is 5,800 yards long, okay? But it would also be useful to stretch out the play and get people on different teams. When the course was originally built, they made some decisions that, probably didn't think about a community whose average age is, what is our average age? 70 or 65, something like that?
No, that's
So there are some changes that, should be made that way. But you're right, Sandy, nobody plays off the 1 tees. And we have some guys that can play.
And I don't think with the remodel, people are going to go from the 3s to the 1s. I don't,
No, but we would love to see some people go from the black balls to the 3s, and some of the 3s back to the 2s, and some of the 2s back to the 1s. That's doable. That helps everything.
And hopefully with younger people coming in, that
That's
might
right.
help too. But
That's
I don't
right.
think we should be totally making the golf course for people that we don't know that are buying yet. I mean, we want to make it beautiful, and
Of
playable.
course.
Yeah, so what I heard Tom say, though I hadn't heard before, was one of the reasons for doing that, looking at the 1 tees, is to stretch out the players across more of the tee boxes than just concentrating on the 3 and 4.
Yeah.
And right,
There's some holes out there, Sandy. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kathy.
No, the other thing I heard you say is that people are all landing in the same places, and that's why we have a lot of divots there. And that does make sense to move them around so that, we move all those spaces around that people are landing. So I never thought of it that way before, but it makes sense.
Okay, Ben, do you have another question?
Yeah, this one's more of a comment from Robert Kuiper. He says, I would love to see the golf survey that was sent, filled out by Mark Metzger. I think we would learn a lot.
Oh, good one.
Okay, well, Tim, why don't you talk to Mark about that?
Well, I think, the next step, which Mr. Pinkerton mentioned, is the committee getting all the information together on that 23rd meeting. And then that's where Mark is going to be an integral part of the process, because when the committee kind of digests everything and says, okay, maybe they don't see the need of doing something from a member's perspective, there's going to be the agronomical perspective and Mark's maintenance perspective. You know, Mr. Pinkerton's example of number 7 is a perfect example of that. You know, to move some water for the sake of being able to have Mark grow grass. Even with the berms, we heard that today from the USGA about these berms between 6 and 7. You know, some members may feel like they're already there, there's no reason to move them. Well, there is an important reason to remove them or to alter that area because of growing grass. The amount of water that's coming down those hills and congregating creates issues. So he'll be very much involved in the next step as he has been involved all along, but very much more involved in the next step as we talk about what needs to be done from an agronomical standpoint.
Right. And you point out that Mark does attend all the committee meetings, all the golf
Right,
course.
he's on the committee. And I would just tell you all, he was very impressive today out there with the guy from the USGA. I mean, they were on the same level. I mean, he would ask a question and the guy from the USGA would answer it using vocabulary that I had never heard of, you know, but Mark was right there with him.
Good. Ben, do you have another question?
The rest of the questions I have right now are mostly relevant to the vote and to financing. So do you want me to go ahead with those, or do you want to wait?
Let's wait on those. We put Dave on the hot seat at the end anyway, so
Okay, sounds good.
Let him wait and go over that. Okay. Next slide. So we're going to talk now. We're going to switch gears and talk about the club facilities improvements. I'm going to turn it over to Gail. By the way, if anybody has any more questions, keep sending them in. We'll get to them at the end. We're not done with questions yet.
Okay, thanks, Larry. So far, since we started in November, we've had 10 meetings to date. And I just say this so that I want to point people to, if you want to know the details of the meetings, the minutes are available on the ad hoc committee website. And they're always 1 week behind because until we approve the last week's meetings, they won't go up and be finalized. We may put drafts in, but we don't have last week's meeting up till tomorrow. We've resolved in the time we've had since then, we had some questions about the feasibility of using the current bistro to become the kitchen of the new or expanded bistro, and we've learned since we asked the question that yes, it is possible to use the current bistro. There's enough space there, about 1,800 to 2,000 square feet, that could become the new kitchen of an expanded bistro. We've also had a general contractor look at the feasibility of adding a second story to the fitness center. And we learned that the current fitness center was not designed to support a second level. However, you could build one over the top of the current fitness center. It would have to be supported, and it would have to be built separate from the top of the current fitness center, but would have to have the same footprint. And our general contractor said it would come with higher cost and more unknowns about the structure or what we might find with the structure of the current fitness center. And they did not recommend us doing that, but it can be done. We've reviewed the second and third iterations of design concepts with the architect, with David Porman. We feel we're moving in the right direction, but we're not quite there yet. Our next step is to develop more detailed layouts that would show what the bistro kitchen would actually look like and what the fitness center, whether it's new or current, would look like. And after meetings with both kitchen and fitness center consultants. So these will have to be incorporated into the designs. So we estimate, and I say this is an estimate, that the design concepts will be ready in early March for member review and input. That said, we want to have the best right design. So if it gets pushed back a week or so, we do have time to get the best plans that we can for members to put review into. As far as the communication plan goes, we're working with the golf committee and Sandy's communications committee. The club facilities subcommittee has developed 30 Q&As for the facilities plan and with some other general questions. And if you saw the Bridging the Future on February 9th, those first three Q&A were developed by the fitness committee, and we are continuing to work and finalize the rest of the questions that we've developed. And we are developing a longer term plan, as we are going to have a Bridging the Future weekly with Q&A and other information. We're developing a longer term plan for what we want to communicate to members regarding the facilities plan. The next item, I'm going to turn it over to Tim, because he and Ben and Jeff Nunner have done our owner's rep have done some field visits to other clubs. So Tim.
Yeah, thank you, Mrs. Fisher. Yeah, we recently went, over the last couple of weeks, we visited 6 clubs that have gone through renovations in recent years. Most of those clubs were bundled clubs. We did visit Bears Paw as well as Kensington, which are not bundled. And the primary focus of what we were looking at was casual dining, indoor-outdoor type dining, and fitness centers. The main focus for most of the clubs in their recent renovations were casual indoor-outdoor dining. And that was before COVID. Obviously, these are renovations that were completed before or during COVID, but it served them well because of having that outdoor space for dining. And that seemed to be the main driver. Fitness centers for a lot of the clubs were important as well. I definitely felt like after seeing 6 different fitness centers, once you've seen one, it feels like you've seen them all. They pretty much look similar, but it's really about space, having adequate space for the equipment and for classes. A couple of the clubs do have rooms for physical therapy and massage, and they were in relatively smaller rooms because they're one-on-one sessions, and I think it was Vanderbilt's. I'm probably not much bigger than a closet for each of them. So that was interesting, and all the clubs that have that said that that's been very well received by the club. The ones that we looked at were all outsourced, so the club's not involved with any of that other than providing a space, and then they work with a contractor, and all the scheduling goes directly through the contractor. Additionally, we definitely noticed a difference in some of the clubs when it came to the finishings, the finer details, the interior design. And that was, I think that's on the slide there, about just having sufficient budget and allocation for furnishings and finishes. One of the clubs we went to, and I won't say which, they were really coming in tight on their budget, and they had to do a lot of value engineering. And I can tell you from walking through the club, it felt that way. It felt like it was done on the cheap, and which is unfortunate when you're spending millions of dollars to have that get pulled out at the last minute. So just a side note of having sufficient funding, contingency funds for the things that do come up with projects, so that it doesn't get pulled out of things that may be seen as unnecessary, but definitely affect the finished product. So that was about it for our visits. We still have a few more clubs to visit in the Estero, Fort Myers area. Again, more of a focus on fitness and casual dining.
Next slide, Ben, please. Okay. Next steps. As I said, we're going to review the next iteration of the design concepts a week from tomorrow on the 26th. After that, if those are acceptable and are what we think they're going to be, then we'll prepare for member review. But once we do have our design concepts that we think represent the best use of the space, we will be bringing those forward. We're going to finalize our Q&A document and update it as necessary, because we have had some questions come in and we have added additional questions already to our Q&As. I think after we have our update next week, it may be our turn the following week to do the Bridging the Future Q&A. So we'll prepare for that. And then I can say I've seen, we're going to see the January numbers this week or at the end of this week, but so far we are on track. And actually, Jeff told me that in December we had actually underspent what would have been projected through that time for the project. So we're on track to be within the budget that was approved by the board in October. So open it up to any questions.
Gail, that would be the budget you're talking about for this phase of this year and this phase of the design project.
Yes, the 125 to get us to the member vote.
Right, right.
That's for all three projects. So I'm just reporting on the entire,
Right.
not, I think golf isn't needing any funding at this time, but except for what the work Jeff does for them and with them, but that's the 125.
The other thing I wanted to just clarify is you talk about preparing for a member review and input on the design concepts. Just so people aren't surprised by what they see, what level of detail would those design concepts be at in the March, April timeframe?
Well, I think this week, I'm hoping that we're supposed to be, or next week, we're supposed to see the design, some of the layouts of the kitchen and fitness centers. And then we did see an elevation next week. So I would think that we're not going to see, I don't think, drawings of buildings per se, but I would have to confirm with the architect what he's going to have for us. Because right now we're seeing very, very basic level shapes and placements of the different pieces, the fitness center, the pool, the bistro, et cetera.
Right, right. Yeah, it's
So
pretty
they're
big.
not going to be schematic drawings like we saw for a member vote, before that. We'll see that later this year, but that isn't the level of detail that's going to be provided.
Okay, good. Any board member questions for Gail?
Yes.
Who said yes? Sandy, okay.
And Gail, when you say design concept, is that one concept for each area, or are you going to have two concepts for the pool, two for the bistro, et cetera?
Right now we're looking at two complete concepts. So you would see the layout of where everything was.
But
on that
one layout.
One layout. We one concept that will have the clubhouse, the fitness center, the pool, et cetera, on it. So it won't be separate pool drawings or separate bistro drawings, et cetera.
So it's one pool, one bistro, one health center.
No. It will be two different, I don't know how I can explain it. It will be two concepts of the entire common area.
So two different pools.
Well, but they'll all be,
They'll all be together, but it's two options. That's what I'm worried about, is if we just show them one option.
I made the question hard. No, it won't be one option. It will be two different options.
Well, that will be good.
Yeah. Okay, other questions for Gail? Betsy?
Gail, not really a question, but thank you for your explanation of what's going on. And this is the very first I've heard about that the members were going to see design concepts. And I'm very pleased to hear that you have put that in now early on so that members can see what's going on, because there's been a lot of discussion about what it's going to be. So
yeah,
thanks for bringing that up today. These meetings are really helpful so we can find out what's going on, and this was very good information. So thanks.
Okay.
We've got a couple on the design, the milestone, the conceptual design milestone back on chart 6. We've got several places at both the golf and the club facilities where we've got member involvement in review and comment. So I think Gail's problem right now is she got nothing to show them right now, but we will shortly, and that's then, and I think intense involvement of the members is certainly intended.
And we have seen some concepts that we didn't think would work, so it doesn't make sense to share things that we don't think are ever going to come to see the light of day and just possibly confuse everybody into thinking that.
Of course not, Gail, but this is the first that I'm hearing that we are sharing concept designs, and I'm very pleased. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Good.
It's a good idea and it has to be done and you've got it on the schedule. So very good.
Jim, you have a question? Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
Me? Okay. Just a clarification on the FAQs for Gail and Sandy. When you got, I know that members have written letters, et cetera, and I'm sure that's been shared with you about what's needed, what's not needed, what they like, what they would not want to have. Do those comments get put into the FAQ questions that you put out for everyone to read?
We've had several letters, so we take the issues or concerns that people have and we may not formulate the exact same question, but we create a question out of it and then we address it in the answer.
Okay, good. And I do think maybe even a town hall should be considered for this part of the project.
Yep.
One of the things that we haven't gotten to yet, but our committee is going to discuss is how are we going to share the design concepts? I mean, because some things deserve explanation or why we're doing it. So we have to talk about whether we're going to do small round tables or meet outside with different groups of people that are interested in coming and taking a look. I've offered Ashton Oaks because they have concerns about the noise and how the any changes to the footprint might impact them. So I've offered to have a separate session with members from Ashton Oaks if they so desire. So we just haven't settled on a total plan yet for that, but we will.
And I would include Sandy's communication committee on a lot of that information.
Oh,
Right.
yes, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for Gail from the board members? Kathy?
Gail, to Tim's point about his visits to the other clubs, these design concepts, do they include, financially, the budget that we had talked about that members were willing to spend the 110 per month? And does that include all the furniture and all the extras that would be involved in developing this new concept for us?
We have, Jeff Nunner has developed budgets based on the various, the options, and included in that are furnishings, fixtures, et cetera.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Jeff has factors that he uses at this point for that, right?
Right.
Okay.
I mean, they're not, he hasn't said we need 40 chairs and costed them out, but he's got, from his experience of doing this over the 20 years, he's got placeholder numbers in place for what are appropriate. Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, but what would be a reasonable amount of money to spend in the different areas?
Yeah, and we asked him at the last meeting at what level of finish is he assuming, and he said he's assuming a level of finish in the buildings similar to what we have in the clubhouse right now, that level of finishing.
All right. And the two different concepts that you'll be presenting, are they based on, what are they based on, the different concepts?
Well, we're looking at the possibility of, they're really based on around whether we tear down the current fitness center and build a new one, or whether we utilize the current fitness center. So there'll be two different options looking at that. Yes, Sandy.
And will there be general budget with it at that
Yes.
point?
Yeah, I mean, we could provide it. I mean, we're working within the $110. We're not trying to, we're very much aware of what members want to pay, the concerns of some people over costs. And so we're not targeting designing building structures, et cetera, that are going to exceed that. Right now, that's our target.
Right.
Well, the challenge is you've got the golf course and the facilities that
Right.
at
Sharing
this
that.
point have to add to 9 million total.
Right. Right, and
Minus two.
that's where in the milestone schedule that we talked about earlier on chart 6, by May, we'll have both a revised estimate from the architect on the golf and a decent level of detail estimate from the construction that we can look at the two and look at the 110 per month and see how they fit and see what adjustments need to be made. And that we don't have all the numbers we need to do. We have nothing on the facilities right now, rough. So we need those numbers, and in May, the board will have to decide how to divide that up based on the designs that we've got in hand now. How do we divide this up? So that'll be a big decision, but we don't have the data to make that decision yet. We will in May.
Well, Gail, I don't want to second guess your committee. You have very talented people on your committee, but does it make sense? You had said when you were proposing or looking at the structure being built over the existing fitness center that the construction people or the architect said it would be more costly and they didn't recommend it. Is that something we should really pursue, knowing that? Or
That was the general contractor, so that wasn't the architect, but the architect was involved in looking at it. I think there are options that you could build out the fitness center. You could build out on a first level.
On the first level instead of building over. Okay.
Instead of building over. So, and they said you can do it. It's just going to cost you more money. They wouldn't do it because it's more expensive to do it that way, and you don't know the unknowns. It's not that you can't do it. You can do it. It's how much you want to spend to build up over the current fitness center. That's not really what we're looking at.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it was a logical question to ask, but we're not really doing it.
Right.
Ben, do we have any questions from the members on the facilities?
While Ben's looking that up, there was one that came in from Gift Brown that he made a really good point that we should address. On the website, we had mentioned about the minutes from the facilities planning webpage. When you go to that webpage, it takes you into the Facilities Improvement Ad Hoc Committee. So that's more of a general page. Then on the right, there's going to be tabs that take you into the two subcommittees. So you'll see a tab within that page on the right for club facilities improvement and golf course renovation. When you go into those individual subcommittee tabs, that will take you to a page that has all of the minutes from those subcommittees. And Mr. Brown had pointed out that when he went to the that main web page, he didn't see recent minutes. The minutes on that main page were from the overall ad hoc committee. So those are a couple of months old. But if you go into the individual subcommittees, you'll find all the minutes from each of those subcommittees.
Right.
So I just wanted to.
Sandy actually has a picture of that in her slides.
Oh, okay.
Get to in a minute.
I didn't need to explain all that.
Yeah.
Well, and we also have a new tab for the FAQs. So all the Q&As would be put in there, and even ones that might not be on the Tuesday email, but they'll all be there and then maybe pull from, and definitely the ones that have already been answered will be on that FAQ page.
Right. Ben, any questions for the facilities?
Yeah, we do have a couple of questions in the queue here. Actually missed one relevant to the golf course renovation previously by Susan Mulligan, so I want to tackle that one first. And she says, it's not the expense that concerns the members regarding moving water, it's the fact that you are changing the property they purchased. So I asked the board to acknowledge the overwhelming response from members of not wanting water moved for the sake of moving water.
Ben, I guess, we've gotten a lot of comments to that, and we are very sensitive to that, and we will, try to make sure that whatever changes we recommend are in the best interest of the whole community.
All right. Relative to facilities, we have another question on operations that I think Tim touched on before, but from Stuart Tate. He says, so when the bistro is closed, is the upstairs dining also closed?
Yeah, so we addressed that before. The upstairs dining is intended to remain open throughout that summer. And of course, we can change it up there to make it maybe a bit more bistro-esque as far as menu and offerings go.
Right, and that's kind of like what we do every summer anyway, when we move lunch operations up to the grill room and shut the bistro down for that period of time.
Okay.
Let's see, we've got more questions on finance and the vote.
Yeah,
There's
hold
also
on.
another question from Susan Mulligan that says, I think the members would like to meet with the owner's rep to learn how he is representing, quote, all the members. I don't think it's a win to have no golf and no bistro at the same time. So I guess that's
Okay.
more of a statement than a question, but.
All right. Well, maybe, you know, what we could do is next month at the special board meeting, we can invite Jeff. Jeff is here. He's on, I think he's online, but we can put Jeff, we can have him dial in. We can have him have his face on one of these, and and he can answer questions from members who would like to hear about what he does and how he represents the members. So why don't we put that on the agenda for next month's meeting, and we'll put Jeff on there.
Sounds good.
Good idea.
Hi, Larry, it's Jeff. I am listening in, so that'd be fine.
Okay, good. Thank you, Jeff. All right, what else you got, Ben, on the facilities?
So this one's from Richard Boning, and he says, you keep mentioning expand the fitness center, which is needed. However, I'm not hearing any discussion on additional meeting rooms for cards, playing, etc., which is very much needed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought my microphone was off, sorry. We hope to be able to provide additional meeting space. I think people that don't use cards or attend some of the meetings or do those don't realize how much space we don't have to do all the activities we want to do. So we haven't decided where exactly that space is going to be yet, but we are designing everything with that with the hope and the plan to add additional meeting space. Thank you for the question.
Mm-hmm. Another question, Ben?
See, we have one from Andrea Kent. It says this sounds a bit like eminent domain. If it is good for the community, we get to change the view you purchased. I guess she's speaking to the moving of the water.
I don't know what else to say, Ben. I mean, we are certainly, our intent is to make the right decision and make that decision available to the membership. And, you know, we want to enhance people's views, not disadvantage anybody.
Right, and there'll be several opportunities, I think, there will be after Kip gets all the comments and the team goes over that with Kip, and he comes back with a redesign, and we have Kip present the redesign. We'll have opportunities, members will have opportunities to look at the redesign and see what's left of the water, what water is being proposed in the redesign, and express their satisfaction or concerns with that. And we're not.
Another big thing on that, Larry, is we didn't even mention is if in the redesign of the bistro, if we bump out and use some of that water on 18, that's going to have to be replaced out on the golf course somewhere.
Right.
So that's just another reason why there's the potential to move water.
Right. It seems like there's water that has to be moved. If we bump out the bistro, another pond in the same basin has to be bumped.
And that's the important part. It has to be in the same area.
There's other water that's being moved for playability, and there's maybe some for aesthetics, and that's maybe where it gets a fine tooth comb.
Could be.
Yeah. Okay. Another question.
Okay. Ben was muted. I could hear him through the wall. He said that's it on facilities questions.
Okay, all right. Glad the walls are thin over there in the clubhouse.
Sorry about that. Yeah, they are.
Why don't we go ahead on to the next section and next chart, Ben, and we're going to move to Sandy, who's going to talk about project communication. Sandy?
Well, we've been on this call an hour and a half, and a lot of the issues have been already been brought up, so I'll try to be quick. Ben, can you move this? The Communications Committee is there to give information from the other two subcommittees. We're not making up anything that goes out, we're getting it from them. The FAQs, we have a whole system now. So if anybody has any questions about any of the renovation, whether it's financial or golf or facilities, give it to one of the committee members or Tim or myself, and we will then get it to the right person to get the right answer. And then it'll be either in an every Tuesday, we're doing a weekly update, we're doing the monthly meetings like this, and then it'll also be listed in on the website. And as you can see on this slide, Bridging the Future, just like Tim's, I think you're on the health date number 90 maybe. Hopefully we won't have to go that far, but this is what we're planning on doing, and each Tuesday updating what's been going on, any pertinent information, and a couple of FAQs. You want to do the next slide, please? This is what Tim was talking about earlier on the website, where you can go to the ad hoc committees, get the minutes, and then we've just added an FAQ tab so that all the questions, if you forgot the answer or want to know if that question's already on there, you can just quickly go to the website and it'll be updated regularly.
Ben, you want to use your cursor to point out what that is? They're right there along the side. Yeah, this is the FAQs, right there.
Right there.
Yeah.
So you go onto the website on the top right or on the left, either way, go to boards and committees, and then you'll be able to get to this. And if anyone has any questions, they can always call me or Katie Fordham. We can help you through it. One other thing we're planning on doing, and I mentioned it, I guess it was at my last meeting, we're going to do ambassadors throughout the community. I mean, we all on the board are getting information and the ad hoc committees are getting information, but there's a lot of misinformation out there and a lot of rumors. So we've already identified 20 people that are involved in different areas, neighborhoods, golf, bridge, tennis, fitness center. And if anyone who's listening is interested, please contact me, because what we want to do is just give them bullet points of the facts so that if they're talking about it, like the rumor of, oh, the bridge is going to cost $1 million, they can have bullet points of the facts. And then they can also give us feedback as to if there are other FAQs that need to be answered. So that's something that we're developing. You know, we're still just working with the two subcommittees because they're kind of new in what information is coming out. So we will be doing the weekly bridge, the monthly meetings. We will also, at some form, when the two, I know Gail was saying, well, maybe they'll have groups to get together, but I'm sure we'll have posters in high trafficked areas in the clubhouse, as well as we can use the TVs that are in the locker rooms and the TV between the locker rooms. So we can, it was brought up, use the little area in the golf cart, but I don't know how much space in a 3x6 file card we can really get many facts in there. And that's basically what I have. Any questions?
Okay, anybody on the board have any questions for Sandy and the communications team?
Sandy, I just think you're doing a great job, and I think this is such an important part of this project. So I think you and your committee are doing a great job. Thank you.
Well, Thank you. We have some really good people that are expertise is marketing, for instance. And so there's different ways for FAQs. For instance, you can start out negative and then do the positive, or start out positive and then do the negative. And we know we need to keep them concise and as short as possible with giving all the facts. So we're just trying to support the other committees to get as much information out as consistently as possible.
And then hopefully we'll have our neighborhood meetings at some point, you know,
Yes.
in next year, and we can go to the neighborhood meetings and
Absolutely.
yeah, so it's great.
A book club meeting,
Yeah.
18-holer meeting, yeah,
Right.
those kind of things, whether it's a board member here helping or
Yeah.
an ambassador to talk about it.
Exactly. Great.
Okay, Ben,
I
next
also
chart.
want to just thank Sandy and her committee, because this is a critical piece for the whole project, both projects, is to
Success,
communicate
right.
to the members.
Right.
And I like the idea of doing the weekly and the monthly, as well as the facts and questions and that kind of thing. So thanks for the hard work going into this.
One other thing I forgot to bring up, actually Larry sent me this information. The last two bridge updates, the weekly updates, the first one, 935 were emailed, 1,935 were emails went out, and 850 read it. So that's pretty,
Wow.
43.9%. And 405 from those 850, 405 clicked further into the facilities ad hoc page. And then the second one, 807 opened it, which was 41.5%, and 601 clicks to the facilities ad hoc page. So that's good interest. I mean, that's a good amount of people that are actually reading these weekly updates.
Great. Excellent. Okay, Dave, over to you.
Okay. Part of, this is nothing new. If those that are on the, well, for this board, or for those that are on the call for a second time, because we covered this about a month ago, and this is pretty much what we've been saying for the last few months in terms of what funding and financing will be available. But I'll go through it again because there may be some who are on the call that haven't been on it before. So just as general assumptions, we are not planning on taking on any new debt until the existing debt is paid off. And that will be paid off in February of 2023. But again, until all designs, plans, and project cost estimates with budgets, all we can address right now is a targeted or estimated funding through the combination of two things. One is a loan and one is capital reserves. The loan would not be taken on until, again, as the old debt is paid off. So that would be March of 2023. The targeted debt capacity would be $110 per member per month, as was determined from the member survey that was done back early part of 2020. And that was what the members, not average members, but the average of members are willing to pay according to that survey. Capital reserves is the second source of funding that we have. And we have approximately $2 million that's been identified to be available in March of 2023. And then within the cost estimates we've included pre-construction planning costs. The board has already approved $125,000 to be used from capital reserves for the year 2021, which is the year we're in, which would lead us to a vote sometime hopefully in October. And the estimate we need for going forward would be about another $400,000, again, from the capital reserves in 2022 and 23 through to the construction start. Again, just noting that all of those numbers would be refined as we receive supportable designs, plans, and cost estimates for the club facilities and the golf course projects. So again, just a rehash, but probably now would be a good time to take questions.
Any board questions for Dave on the finance side? Ben, you had a couple of questions for finance?
Yes, I have first question is from Susan Mulligan, and she asks, where does the club expect to get the extra money over the 2 million in reserves, the other 1.5 million over reserves without a member vote regarding the golf course?
We've talked five, 6 times today about member votes, that there will be a member vote on both projects. The fact that we've got reserves is not the point. We're going to need funding for both projects, and so there will be a member vote in the October, November, December timeframe. Exact dates to be determined, but it'll be you'll be voting on the 2 projects. Okay, next question.
All right, this is from Bert Gallo, and he asks, members said they were willing to pay $110 per month. Did they say for how long? And if we have one vote, will we know the cost of both projects?
Yeah.
That's the plan. The $110 per member per month includes both projects. And whether it's over 8 years or 10 years, that's still 110 still fits within that parameter. Obviously, if we go to 10 years, that's more dollars that we would borrow.
Absolutely.
So that's the range. The range is from 9 million to 10.5 million.
How long would you be willing to pay that?
I'm hearing a lot of chatter in the background. So is that a question or?
No, I don't think so. I do have one more
Okay.
question here.
I think Dave, Ben, wait a minute. I think Dave, to Bert's question, I think he is also, I think his question included, will there be, when we vote on it, will there be a separate price for the golf course and a separate price for the facilities?
Oh, right, yes.
That total into the one total budget for the finance, to be voted on.
Well, that's the part where we have to decide as we get closer into design, whether or not what amount of money we're going to spend for golf course versus the facilities. But the total is going to be within the parameter. Our parameter is $110 per member per month, maxed out at 10 years for all members for both projects.
Right. Okay, good. Thanks, Ben.
Larry, just so when we did the facility planning study, just for clarification, we asked members to tell us what they would be willing to pay per month per household for a 10-year time period. So just, and that the number that they came back with was $110 per month.
Right.
So whether it's 8 or 10 years, members voted or told us what they'd be willing to pay for 10 years.
Right. So we're really working backwards from what people told us they're willing to pay back to what we can afford.
Yeah. The point about the 8 years versus 10 years is if we can instill some fiscal discipline in the organization and we can preserve some debt capacity going forward, that would be our goal. If we can't, we're going to be doing it out over another 10-year loan.
Like the 10 years we have right now.
Yes.
Right. Okay, Ben, another question?
All right, this question is from Stephen O'Donnell, and he asks, instead of voting on 2 projects, could we just vote on the dollars the members are willing to pay? If the members accept the $110 a month, then we could allow the committee to use those funds to do the renovation as they see fit.
Yeah. I think that's a strategy question and a good one, a good point. And that's a strategy question that I think the board and the committees are going to have to wrestle with and come up with in the over the later, the schedule has us in the summer, in the July through October timeframe. The two committees will be putting their vote packages together. And the question is, what's the strategy we're going to have in that vote package? And that's a good question. That's a good way to do it, but one option. So anyone have any other thoughts about that? Okay.
I think members want to know what the bistro club facilities are going to look like. I think that's what they're voting on, not the amount of money. We've kind of already determined the amount of money that members will tolerate through the survey. So now it's what is it going to look like? And
Right.
that's the question we have to present to them and see if they like it.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
I think I sort of use it, you know, if it's got a wow factor and it's something that they like and we can afford, then why would we just vote on dollars? I think the people would want to have input into the facilities that we're going to put together.
Yeah. Okay. Ben, any other finance questions?
Yes, another question just came in from Robert Kuiper, and he asked, do you expect an assessment because of COVID-19 this year?
No.
Tim? Oh, Ben, Dave? No.
No.
Same answer.
Short
No.
answer.
Short answer is no.
No.
But get your shots anyway. Okay. Any other questions, Ben?
No, that's all I have.
And you had some other questions that were not finance related, or
Those last two were regarding the vote.
okay.
that I just asked.
So have we answered all the questions?
Yeah, we're clear.
Okay. Any board members have any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. The next special board meeting is scheduled for Thursday, March 18th, just a month away. And I encourage members to send in your questions. If you sit at the bistro and complain to somebody about what's going on, but you don't tell anybody in the committee, then all you're doing is just complaining. If you want to be constructive, let us know what you're thinking. Let us know what your concerns are, what your suggestions are. We can't react to them if you don't tell us what they are. So we've got lots of ways to get in touch with the committee, and you can always, Tim loves to get emails. You can always send Tim emails and he'll send them to the committee. But don't hesitate to bring up your concerns. Don't just sit and stew. Tell us what's on your mind. Okay, thank you, everybody. Jim?
Can I ask just one short question? Hopefully David can give me a short answer. During the time that the construction will be underway, how is the budget committee or the finance committee dealing with projecting what revenue there would be or not? Is that just a general budgeting issue, or is that an issue that would be specific to the rehab and reconstruction and the golf course?
No, I'll sort of chime in, and then Tim, you can probably speak to this better, but the way I see it is that when we determine what we're going to do, what we're going to build and renovate, and when we're going to do it, that would get baked into the budget process for that period.
Yeah, it's exactly it. And after we have kind of a scope of what the facilities would look like, then we can start to run some projections as far as operational costs, payroll costs, utilities, things like that.
Yeah,
because when it goes to a member vote, we need to be able to support and back up. You know, you have the capital piece and what that looks like, but also the operational piece too. So that needs to be presented as part of it.
All right, and another point I'd add to that, the budget for the summer of 2023 is being put together and voted on for October 1st implementation of 2022. So Tim and the board and the finance team will have time to estimate what the impact's going to be and put the budget in place on October 1st. It'll carry us through that year. So they'll have planned that all out long before the construction starts. Okay, is that it? Very good. Thank you very much, everybody. Don't forget to send your questions in if you got them. Ben, thank you very much for conducting the webinar today.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Have a
you.
great day.
Helpful meeting. Thank you.
Bye all.
Thank you.
Have a great day.